What's up guys, on another episode, and welcome to my second ever Death Battle video. Today I wanted to talk about my personal season of Death Battle. I'm mainly going to go over fights which I think would be pretty cool, and yeah. A few things I want to get out the way first. First of all, thanks for the amount of popularity of the last video. It's now at 53 views, I think, which is over double my second most viewed video. Hopefully this video will do as well, I guess. Secondly, not all of these matches are ones a lot of people know about. A lot of them are just little ones which I had to put in to fill in spaces or are really obscure, but I like them. Thirdly, for all of the thumbnails, I tried to use the Death Battle fandom, and if I generally couldn't find one, I would just make my own, and you'll definitely be able to tell the ones I made my own. But yeah, let's start off. I've got 22 matches, so this should be good. And starting off, Piccolo versus Martian Manhunter. This is a fight I think would be fun because it has a lot of possibilities on Martian Manhunter's side. Martian Manhunter is a character which can do a lot, and he has a lot of really cool abilities. And Piccolo is just really powerful. I honestly think Piccolo beats him in strength, but Martian Manhunter beats him in hacks. But I would love to see things like maybe Martian Manhunter going inside of Piccolo to try and kill him that way, or maybe him blasting off Piccolo's arm just for him to regenerate it and like hit him with a ki blast. But in the end, I do think Martian Manhunter wins. It's pretty much, don't worry, it's pretty much the only like floating brick fight, as people would call it. But can you really call Martian Manhunter a flying brick? Whatever. Don't have much to say on this one, I just think it's fun. Number 21 is a battle royale with the JoJo villains. I am a massive JoJo fan, so this would be just really fun to debate. I've seen a lot of arguments for it, like, can any of them kill cars? The main ones are probably Cars, Poochie, and Bunny, since those are the only four which three that I can see doing anything. But you can honestly ask, can they kill Cars, or is he fully immortal? Can anyone catch Poochie to kill him? Or does the 4C Love Train just kill everything? It's a really complicated fight, and the fact that Death Battle hasn't done many battle royales means that this would basically be the perfect way to do more. Since it's highly debatable and it's really fun. And also, the past JoJo videos have done alright, with my favorite episode of all time being Dio vs. Alucard. And Jotaro vs. Kenshiro hasn't nearly went down as well, but people would like this one, okay? Don't worry. For number 20, get ready. Heavy vs. Winston. This is pretty much the closest I have to a Marvel vs. DC, as you'll quickly see, because I really like TF2. This is the only TF2 versus Overwatch one, though. Sorry, I had to sneeze. But I think it would be really fun, and it's pretty much the only close Overwatch versus TF2 fight. Every other one is just Overwatch has better weapons. I personally just don't like Tracer versus Scout, but I would watch this fight. Give us a scene where Winston hits Heavy with a full-on laser blast, just for Heavy to run away and try and eat his sandwich. Also, maybe give us a fist fight between the two, since Massive Monkey and Russian Fighter. Or just give us a raw scene of the two just firing bullets into each other. I don't know, I think it'd be fun. I will say though, the next fight is basically this but better. Dallas versus Tachanka. These two don't really have many connections. It's kind of just, if you want to give them a connection, the Russian Badger, I guess. But I think it would be interesting as having it like Dallas is trying to rob a place or something, whilst Tachanka's trying to stop him. And also, it's a really debatable fight. Like, I've asked friends, and they've changed their opinions on who wins based on the day. From what I can see, Dallas has more weapons, so he could overload Tachanka, but Tachanka has better weapons, basically. His weapons are more high quality. And also, he would have the advantage of, like, battle strategy, because he ain't mental. I don't know who wins. If you want to comment down below who you think wins, go ahead. Heck, comment who you think would win any of these fights, because I don't know for certain on any of them. But yeah, I think this would be a quite fun fight, and I think it would be a really good excuse for SFM. Right, next up, Percy Jackson versus Aqualad. And this very nearly didn't make it on, because when I was first writing this, I actually hated the fight, because I figured it was just a stalemate, because Percy Jackson, he's immune to water, which is what Aqualad's attacks are made out of, and Percy's main sword, Riptide, couldn't damage him because he's not a monster. Then I started to think they probably would classify Aqualad as a monster because he is part mermaid, and Aqualad can still have some strength feats, I guess. Uh, Also, I'm just a massive fan of Percy Jackson. It's my favorite book series of all time, uh, and it's a surprisingly close fight. One of those very few fights where you can argue for the non-DC Herald to win. So I think I'm up for it, and a lot of other people are up for it, so let's just do it. Uh, Next up, we have Polnareff versus Speed of Sound Sonic. Another one which barely made it in because I hate Polnareff. But I just like this idea because it's just pure speed. Just seeing the two zip around the screen, with the only thing remaining still being Polnareff, while Silver Chariot is just trying everything in its power to prevent Speed of Sound Sonic from getting him, for him eventually like take off his armor and go even quicker. It'll be a really interesting fight to see, like, hey, the two try, like, because Stans are just very strange compared to other characters, and it's another debatable fight. Like, I guess you can say Polnareff is much faster, so he can definitely parry his attacks. But Speed Sound Sonic could feasibly just throw some grenades at him. It could go either way. Yeah, don't have much to say about this fight. It's one of the ones which no one really cares about. When I was looking at it was all about Speed of Sound Sonic, and he was getting pit against people like regular Sonic, and the one which I saw, which I kept seeing, which I thought was pretty cool, was Raiden from Metal Gear Rising. But nah, this is the best fight between the two. Right, next up is the only remake we have, Master Chief versus Doomguy. Uh, this fight is really good. The original Master Chief versus Doomguy was my second favorite fight of season 1. Like, we all know the one which is the best, but I think this is the second best. And just seeing the two go at it now in like 3D would be perfect. Give us the raw moments of Doomguy just firing all of his guns at once, trying to get Master Chief, whilst Master Chief is trying to use strategy. Hey, give us maybe an up-close battle where Doomguy's like trying to use his shotgun or his fists, whilst Master Chief is going more up-close and personal with the beam sword. And give us a final blast with the BFG. Okay? If we didn't get that, it would be awful. But I love the idea of this fight, so yeah. Let's just keep going. I have a lot of fights to get through. Next up is Bill versus Discord. I'm surprised by how excited I would be if this match came up, considering I know nothing about Discord and I don't particularly care about Gravity Falls. But my main reason for liking the fight is because I like the idea of getting two characters who are equally as crazy. You know, just two characters which are absolutely blimmin' mental, and just having them go at each other. It's legendary, that idea. So seeing these two fight would be so fun, and it could be just utter carnage. Plus, it's one of those fights where it doesn't really need a specific animation style. Heck, they can be changing throughout, but probably mainly sprite and hand drawn. I don't see them doing particularly well in any of Death Battle's 3D styles. Just don't make it a purely puppet fight. Okay, I don't like puppet. Anyway, next up is the one most people are saying is gonna happen this season: Bowser versus Eggman. I've heard so many people say this is happening season 9. This is gonna be the big fight, and yeah, sure, that'll be fun. It's basically the final fight for the big Sonic versus Mario rivalry. I mean, there are other fights out there probably. I just don't know them. So yeah, I think it'd be really fun to give us moments where like maybe Bowser uses his entire her army of robots, whilst Eggman is using his army of robots, whatever, and then Bowser is just fighting all of them. You know, just wait, a full-on Dio versus Alucard moment. Uh, there's gonna be a lot of references to Dio versus Alucard, I guess. But just moments. Wait, then maybe a moment with massive Bowser and Eggman in one of his big robots just punching each other. You know, wait, there's a lot of potential for this fight, and I think it wouldn't be wasted in any animation style. So yeah, it's not particularly high because I don't care about it too much. I'm not the biggest fan of Eggman, but I do like Bowser. Fun little fact about me: anytime there is a game where you can play as Bowser, I play as Bowser because I love his attacks in Smash. He's really heavy, which makes him good for Mario Kart, and then I kind of just keep going with the joke for a Mario Party. Uh, so yeah, let's just move on to number 13, which is going to be the final one before we get to the top half. And Sprocket versus Engineer. This is literally just here because I like TF2 and I want to see Skylanders. Uh, honestly, there's not much to say about it. Sprocket definitely stomps. Mainly because literally every Skylander can be argued for Universal, which is probably a video I'm gonna have to make someday. Not right now though. Yeah, I like this fight. I'd like to see moments with like the Sentry he's fighting, maybe Sprocket trying to get in close against Engineer, whilst Engineer keeps her back with a shotgun. Then maybe he uses his teleporter to get back to a high ground so he can build a sentry nest to try and take her out. Mainly just have Engineer try and use strategy while Sprocket's just trying to build a big tank to blow him up. Because that is the big part of this fight. Just Engineer using his wits to keep away. Now we're on to the top half, starting off with Deku versus Gon. The biggest one where it kind of just came in at the last second because I saw I was going to put number 12 and I just thought, nope, and I put in this one. Honestly, I don't want this fight to happen yet because I kind of want Deku to reach the end of the story to make the fight fully going. But apparently Deku already wins, which is cool. I'm not the biggest fan of either series. I've not seen Hunter x Hunter, and I found My Hero Academia to kind of just be middle of the road, you know. But if the fight was made, I would not complain, and I would enjoy it. Honestly, I think it'd be good in in-house 3D. I don't know. I think Sprite would just make it feel a bit cheap. But please just give us a moment with Big Gon. I don't care how you do it. Just give us old Gon just beating up this small child. I don't know. Okay, number 11. Cyborg versus War Machine is literally the one of two Marvel versus DC matches here, and I think it's a shocker it's not been made yet. Cyborg is just one of those characters which I think deserves to be on eventually. And War Machine is probably his best foe. Honestly, I'm surprised when it came to Genos versus War Machine, they did War Machine instead of Cyborg. Because, you know, two cyborgs instead of Big Gun. From what I've heard, though, Cyborg apparently stomps. Like, he has something huge up his sleeve, I don't know. I've heard people call Cyborg one of one of DC's most powerful characters. And I don't understand it, but whatever. Number 10. now we're getting on to both more and less popular ones, as well as ones which I really want to see. And SCP-682 versus Doomsday is really fun. It's the idea of two characters which have been shown to be basically unkillable, and saying, well, one has to die. And I love this fight. If it got made into an actual death battle, I'd spend a full video just diving into the two characters, saying who would win, making a full proper analysis, and give a full prediction, because this is a fight with so many things about it. Using the SCP Foundation would be so much fun, and SCP-682 is the perfect lead way into there. Plus, Doomsday is just fun. And just giving us moments of the two refusing to die, Have maybe one be impaled on a huge pipe, just for them to punch the pipe through their chest to get to the other person will be awesome. And now we're moving on to number 9, and I forgot what number 9 is, and it's alright, the other Marvel vs. DC match. Weirdly enough, I don't hear people talk about Joker versus Green Goblin. Honestly, I think we should get more Batman villains versus Spider-Man villains, because a lot of them are quite similar. The two I always hear is Sandman versus Clayface, and also the other one is Mysterio versus Scarecrow. But this one is just fun. It's got the energy of Bill versus his Discord, but it's combined with a hilarious his characters. Plus, it's sort of a more elevated rivalry, considering the original Spider-Man versus the Dark Knight, the two sort of revolutionary comic book films, and those two are the main villains. So yeah, I think this would be a really fun fight, and if you disagree with me, I don't care. Right, next up is Steve versus the Terrarian, and this is probably the last fight where if it doesn't happen, I'm kind of fine with it. The top 7 are all ones which I really, really want to see, and they're probably going to have a bit longer analysis here. But this fight is one which, it's a classic rivalry, and I think it'd be really cool to see. And it's another one which is really debatable, because Steve has things which can give him outer versal level feats, whilst if you don't include glitches, Terrarian has guns, which could be a bit of a problem. But give us things like the two fighting in midair, with Steve using his Elytra, and Terrarian using any of his flying things. Have the two slowly upgrade in armor, with maybe the two starting out with no armor on, and just fighting with minimum level weapons. Then both fall into a cave and find their better weapons and keep fighting. Heck, if you really want to, have the Terrarian start spawning in some bosses, and have the two fighting the bosses whilst fighting each other. That could be really fun, and Steve can do the same thing, because maybe he starts wither spamming. As for the animation style, I don't know, because the two are from two different kinds of animation. I think it'd probably end up being Sprite, but whatever. Right, next up is one which I really like, and it's Jiraiya versus Kissa. If you ask me, these two are sort of the ancestors of all Shonen Sensei. You can also say Roshi, but these two are the big ones in my mind. And I would love this fight to death, unless they called Kisuke Filza. As long as they don't mention Filza, it's going to be an amazing fight. I thought Madara versus Aizen was and I loved Ichigo versus his Naruto. So this would be the final big fight, and it would finally give Bleach a win. If this fight ever gets made into a proper battle, I'll explain why I think that. But basically, I don't see a way Jiraiya wins. The two scalings are just massively different. But I think it would be really fun. Maybe have Jiraiya try and use trickery and moving around, whilst Kisuke's up in the air, just slicing down on the floor. for him to eventually pull out his Bankai. It would just be a fun fight, and I feel like it could lead to a death where whoever wins just gives their respect to the other, and it's just a fun fight, you know. Right, next up is Spy versus Agent 47. This annoys me so much because it's right there and it's such a classic fight. But for some reason, everyone always says, "Oh, Agent 47 versus John Wick." One is famously stealthy, the other doesn't know the meaning of the word stealth. Just let John Wick fight the Punisher, and then have these two duke it out, okay? And if you might say, "Oh, but the Punisher has better foes," I don't care. Just don't let this guy fight John Wick. When this fight is right here, it's built for SFM because it literally is. TF2 was made for SFM. SFM more SFM was made for TF2, and we could get moments where they start off with a pistol duel, then we go to a knife fight where it looks like Agent 47's killed Spy just for Spy to turn around and hit him with a backstab, thanks to the Dead Ringer. And you can have so much in between, like maybe Spy goes invisible, but Agent 47 throws something into the air to catch him off guard, and then keeps attacking. Plus, we can have maybe Spy give out some witty banter, or it can just be played silent. Wait, and considering how much people love Snake vs. Sam, this is that, but to me, it's my version of that. It's like a stealth fight. I almost called it better, which would, of course, was Biffy to literally appear at my house. But yeah, I love this fight, and just make it, please, Death Battle. Right, top 5 time. And first up is Juggernaut versus 096. I put that image there because I didn't particularly want anything too creepy, you know? Keep it lighthearted. But these two are just fun, you know? Just give us a fight where the two are nothing but just punching each other, slamming each other through houses. And we can legitimately get a point where the two are angry skeletons wailing on each other. And you could tell the difference between the two because Juggernaut is bigger and on fire. Yeah. And explain why these two are so cool. Because they're some of my favorite characters from both series, with Juggernaut seeming like this unstoppable force, and 096 sort of being this entity which everyone is afraid of in the SCP universe. Not to mention, both of them basically never die. Like, you can hit them with a lot, and it's practically impossible to stop them. It's really thematic, and it would be really fun. You know? Yeah, it's really fun. Next up is probably one of the most no one cares about this fight matchups here, but I think Katara versus Killer Frost is cool. And I kind of put these small because I couldn't find many good images for them. Most of it was kind of just weird, you know, just scuffed a bit. But this would be a really fun fight, just seeing how Killer Frost's ice bounced off Katara's waterbending. Maybe have Killer Frost shoot out a lot of ice. He's just for Katara to turn it into water and turn it back on her. But over time, Killer Frost is gaining more and more of an upper hand until the full moon comes out, and then things get really interesting, eventually leading to Katara bloodbending Killer Frost. It would lead to an absolute guttural moment. Bloodbending is just is just a way of making things terrifying. And having her go all out against Killer Frost and just watch as Killer Frost's body crumbles would be so much fun. And I've saw other fights for these two, but I think this one works really well. And yeah, also it's kind of a weird mismatch where Killer Frost starts off being absolutely horrible and evil, and over time embraces her good side, whilst Katara starts off perfect, just as this really nice character, and over time learns to use her evil side a bit more. So yeah, it's a really good fight. And the top three, one of them is one most people know at this point. One is one which I love, and I will continue to fight for it. And then the last one is one which some people know, and I just love. Deoxys versus Lord Boros. I've heard people like Biffwe talk about this fight to death, so I don't have much to say except for the fact that I think it would be so cool to see the fight between a guy who doesn't shut up versus this completely silent foe. And also, it would be fun to see Lord Boros going through each of his stages, getting more and more powerful, whilst Deoxys is changing his form to try and keep up. And eventually leading to a collapsing star roaring cannon, and from Boros, wiping out like an entire asteroid belt or an entire planet, just for Deoxys to be showing off that he was in his defense form and maybe he's protect. It will be so much fun to see that he is sort of the two hitting off each other like that. And also a moment at the start where Boros starts like giving a monologue, being like, you seem like a worthy foe. Just for Deoxys to splits up to him and hit him with a psycho cut. Just give us a fight like that, okay? This would be so much fun. And it would be basically a perfect right fight, basically. Also, it's surprisingly close. Like, Boros, it may seem like they're nowhere near each other, but due to scaling, Deoxys can reach planet level, and Boros is shown to be easily planet. Anyway, time to get on to one which only I care about. Melios versus Rinakumura. This annoys me, because similar to Spy versus Agent 47, for some reason everyone wants Meliodas to fight Asta, and I don't get that fight. Like, this is far more thematic with the two being children and of basically Satan, with one being Satan and the other, come on, he's Satan. And both are trying to go against their fathers whilst trying to use their power, but not to the point where they lose their humanity. It's this idea which would be amazing, and seeing like Rin, maybe having it start off with Rin thinking King Meliodas is some dangerous demon and trying to kill him. And over time, the two are going more and more above, until eventually Meliodas unleashes his proper demon state, and the two are just going crazy, having where we can lead to some full-on sword battle in the middle of a blue fire forest. Something to the level of Silver Samurai versus Shredder. Except, imagine that, but most of that battle was in 2D. And that's what I think about this fight. That's what I think this could do. And eventually have Rin go from some full-on, completely outrageous attack, with Meliodas going for a full counter to turn the tables and take the win. It will be so much fun, and there's so much you can do with this fight. And for a while, it was my favorite, except for the fact that I've generally started to move away from Meliodas recently. And now there's one which is taking its place. And it's so dumb, but I don't care. Koro Sensei versus Psyche K, baby. Uh, I've always just wanted to see these two on the show, and they're basically perfect matches for each other, to the point where they've had a crossover in the manga. Yeah, if you look at Assassination Classroom's manga, there at the end of one of them there is a crossover with Psyche K. And they can start the fight with like that, but the two start fighting, and we can see maybe Koro Sensei holding the edge for a long time until Psyche takes off his inhibitors. Then things get really interesting. Also, I would just love a moment where Psyche tries hitting him, Koro dodges, and then he tries to teach him. Just give him like some advice, like, "Oh, don't hit me like that. If you're gonna hit me, do it sneakingly." And then Psyche just come up, gut punch him, and be like, "How was that?" The two don't have to banter, but it would be fun. And it goes to full on planet level destruction. Plus, I know that doesn't seem it, but it's quite debatable, because Koro is definitely faster and possibly stronger, but Psyche just has so many hacks it's mad. And just whoever won would be awesome, and I love this fight. Okay, and the annoying thing is, for some reason, everyone just gets Koro Sensei's opponents and pick the worst ones. Like Saitama, that's just part of the quest to have every character fight Saitama, and most of them die. Then wait, then the Sans. Oh yes, this planet level basically god versus the funny skeleton man. That's fair. And the worst one is definitely Monokuma because why? Monokuma doesn't even seem to reach wall level, and Koro is here sitting at planet. It would be one of the biggest stomps ever done. But of course not the biggest because that one is literally infinity. Uh, I don't know. I think this is the perfect fight for the two, and it has to be made eventually. I think it would be in a really fun sprite fight, and it could be something like Mob versus Tatsumaki, which I'm gonna get to eventually. I'm actually planning on writing a season 7 ranking, mainly so I can get to season 6 because I love season 6. And all I'm gonna say is Mob versus Tatsumaki is amazing, and Mob and Psyche are quite similar in how they in sort of how they act, I guess. Like they could be animated quite similarly. And it will also be quite interesting because Psyche's not a character who usually fights, you know? So seeing him go in this fight with Koro Sensei would be really fun. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I've not made a title screen this time, I just realized that. Thanks guys for the support on the last video, it was really good. I'm finally back up above 10 subs, I'm now at 11, and hopefully we can try and get that further and maybe get up to 50, which is my first little goal. But I do have one final thing for my viewers. If you've watched to the end, then you're going to be excited about this. It has to do with the last video I uploaded, but yeah. Let's see if you guys figure it out. All I'm going to say is Salamon's here is going to be fighting, and he's going to be fighting one of the 4 opponents I revealed, okay? And the fight will probably be out by the end of this week. But yeah, I'll see you guys later, okay? Bye.